Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Asa. I am a horror writer living in Mexico City. I also wrote this series, 6 sermons for Audible, starring Stephanie Shu. And today I want to talk about this one specific idea that has transformed my writing. It's actually amazing because I only got this concept in the last few years, and yet it has had a major impact. And I honestly think that I have to go back to something like show don't tell or omit needless words, iconic pieces of writing advice that are like siempre applicable, to find something as potent as this turn of phrase. I learned about this from a note. So I sent a treatment to a screenwriter pal to review it, and this person gave me excellent notes. Fortunately, they left these notes as a voice memo so I can have it and have this sweet little audio to share. So here's this little chunk of advice that's really changed my writing.
I reached the end of it and I felt satisfied, but kind of like, who cares? Why is this a forever story? Why is this, something that will last and matter in some way under the surface?
So I adore this idea of a forever story. I think that thinking about whatever you're working on and placing it in context of literature, of art, of time, of history, of thinking about who it will apply to when is such a lofty sort of notion in the best possible way. And that's why we're going to the Piramides de Teotihuacan today, just because this is such a cool, ready-made visual metaphor for this concept to make something that lasts forever, to write something that will stand the test of time, like these pyramids. My history is not super solid. I wish it was, but I do know that these pyramids have been around for a long time. They are pre-Aztec, right? So these had this community, this civilization thrived in the sort of first chunk of the first millennium, 0 to 500 CE. And it's old, and these pyramids are still around. They have endured despite several civilizations, despite 2,000 years. They're there. And as you can see, they're more or less intact. And you could say the same about Homer, the Bible, the Quran, the Greeks, Aeschylus, the playwright, Socrates, these people that we still read today. And I think you can fast forward. I think it's safe to say we're going to be reading someone like Toni Morrison for a long time. And I just think it's really cool to think about a piece of art or a piece of work enduring past the conclusion of entire civilizations, because as we very well may be approaching that point today, here in Mexico City, we have a water crisis. Will this place be livable for most people in 10 years? Quien sabe? But something that we write today might just last. Okay, I get it. You might be thinking, cool, wow, you really think you could write something like that? Ha, this is a YouTube video, man. And I get that. And I get that. And I respect that. And you're absolutely right. I hope you are the next Toni Morrison. I hope you are the next Socrates. I'm Asa. I'm doing the best I can. The good news is that there are actually other ways to think about this idea of a forever story that I think are really compelling, really empowering, and could be useful for anyone watching this video. The second way I think a forever story is super useful and less intimidating is to think of the idea of writing something that will impact one person forever. And there's a lot of books out there that may not be around 2,000 years from now, but I know have marked me forever. I remember as a kid, I read this book, My Name is Asher Lev by Chaim Potok. I couldn't even tell you what this book is about, but I read it twice as a young person, and I never did that. And I just know that it's in me. I think that this is true. I'm sure you have a book like this, something that clicks, something that maybe inspired you to write, something that changed the way you think about something forever. I think the beautiful thing about words and writing is that it doesn't even take a full piece to achieve that. I think about lines of poetry, certainly poems, but even lines of poetry that frankly are just part of me now. There's a Ted Hughes poem, somewhat controversial poet, husband of Sylvia Plath. He wrote this poem called The Thought Fox. And in this poem, there's a line earlier in the poem, which I might get a word or two wrong, but it's something to the effect he is describing this fox looking, the speaker of the poem is looking out, seeing the fox, and it says something more near, though deeper within darkness. I love that idea that something could be physically closer, but existentially, metaphorically, symbolically deeper, farther away into darkness. And just that simple, elegant articulation of that little dichotomy, that concept has stuck with me and is part of me now. And so the one big project that I have put out in my career is a series for Audible. It's called Six Sermons. That show was like, it did well for them. It was like a prestige piece, so it didn't have a huge audience, but it made their best of fiction list. And it was a modest hit and it achieved a lot of things for me personally. But honestly, and I could say this super genuinely, the thing that I am most proud of and the takeaway from that project is honestly a handful of reviews from folks who have been affected by suicide. The show's about suicide. It's a serious sort of drama with thriller elements. It's a lot about suicide. I had a dear friend who took his life and wrote this piece to process that in a lot of ways. And a couple reviews, a couple individual personal emails, people share and they said, hey, you know what? This really speaks to my feelings and my experience. And I don't know if they're still talking about Six Sermons. I don't know if they'll ever talk about it. I don't know if they're still thinking about it. But I have faith that piece is in them now and it's part of them and it will last for their lifetime. Here's this lovely little excerpt from a speech that Charlie Kaufman gave. Charlie Kaufman is a film director. I'm just going to read it for you.
Say who you are. Really say it in your life and in your work. Tell someone out there who is lost, someone not yet born, someone who won't be born for 500 years. Your writing will be a record of your time. It can't help but be that. But more importantly, if you're honest about who you are, you'll help that person be less lonely in their world, because that person will recognize themselves in you, and that will give them hope.
What's really cool about this idea also is this notion that like something that we're experiencing right now might not even reach anybody right now in this life of ours, which is like scary. It's okay, great, worked my butt off. We're not all Franz Kafka, who wrote a lot of his work was not even read or understood or discovered until well after his death. There is something really special about this idea that it's okay, maybe you won't be taught in college, but like maybe somebody will run up on a short story that you wrote 72 years from now and be like, wow, that is exactly how I feel when I see the sunset. That is exactly how I feel when I got dumped. And that's, I don't know, it's like this kind of connection across the ages, pyramids. Are you picking up what I'm putting down here? I at least have to find reasons why this is worthwhile. The idea is to reach out and touch somebody, and it's not quantity, it's quality. And if you can reach somebody, if you can change somebody, if you can push the dial of justice or compassion in somebody, then you're doing the work that you're meant to be doing. And that's why we're doing this. And that's why we got to keep doing this. It doesn't matter if it's Simon and Schuster or Macmillan. It doesn't matter if it's your vlog. It doesn't matter if it's your blog, your newsletter, anywhere, which way you self-publish a book. Like, it just doesn't matter. If you move someone, you've moved the world. It's the butterfly effect. And I recognize this is a wildly romantic concept. But I would asterisk all of this that this is coming from someone who is building a career as a commercial writer. I am trying to write stuff that does reach a lot of people so that I can push the needle of a lot of folks. And it's just an interesting tension that I think anyone in this biz has to keep in mind. I want to make something that will sell so I can put a roof over my head and so that I can continue writing and reach a lot of people. But I also want to create something super special. And I think that tension is really challenging I think that the more you write, the more rooms you're in with executives who are thinking in formulas, who cannot see beyond Save the Cat, which is useful, but cannot think beyond it by Save the Cat, formulaic structures. These are hard to be in, these rooms at first, because you're just like, what the heck? You don't get it. You don't understand. I'm trying to do something bigger. Why would we accommodate the lowest common denominator? But I think that the pro move, the varsity approach to writing is to try the best you can to hold both these ideas in your mind. It's, hey, I got to write something for the gente, for the people. I want an audience, but at the same time, I'm going to give it my all. I'm going to leave it on the court. I'm going to bleed for this thing, and I'm going to try the best I can to write something that, I don't know, is going to affect one person profoundly. Even if it's just one person, ideally it's more. Ideally it's more than this lifetime. Ideally we write something that lasts as long as these pyramids, which are going to outlast us all. But if we don't, it's at least we moved the needle. I think another way that you can think about this idea of a forever story is it might change you forever, something that you're working on. And it's really cool because all these ideas have come to me subsequently of that note, that simple note about on a thriller. But it can change you forever too, because often writing something is a means of exorcising or giving birth to something that just needed to be in the world, or to expand ideas that weren't really coherent, but like you wanted to understand because they were percolating. And on the other side of something that you write, there's a certain, you've been changed by it. And for me, at least, this has happened most clearly in a handful of poems that I've written. I've really only written 10 poems probably in my whole life, but I spent a few months on each of them, probably a long time, perfecting them, being super precise. And I think that those poems are particularly special to me. They help me articulate things that I felt but didn't understand. That's what I wanted to talk about today. Yeah, like I said, this one little note has really changed my writing, and I hope it'll change yours. Let me know what you think and keep writing. Let's keep doing this because this world we're in could be, its days could be numbered. So I don't know. We got to stay positive. How do y'all do it?